What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're still working on the 71 Impala DONK. It's a beautiful day. Drove the Dirty Bird today. I mean, it's only like 50, but it's sunny, so it's nice. Getting back to Big Lou's car. By the way, this is 71 Impala, not a 75 Caprice. I'm an idiot. Anyway, this morning I had to drive all the way to Lou's shop, which is about 2 hours away from my shop, just to get this stuff. So, U-joint straps, the flex plate, and the bolts. So now that I have the flex plate, we're gonna get this thing up in the air, finally get the transmission in it, and the drive shaft, and just to get a couple more pieces of the puzzle on. After that, the rockers did come in the mail, so we're gonna throw those on, button all that stuff up, just keep throwing parts at it. Keep watching. Right. Let's go ahead and throw this flex plate on real quick. See if I can do this one hand. Line up the holes. Which that is not lined up. Huh. That's not good. I might have to figure out why these holes don't line up. I don't think I've ever seen that before. All right, well, hang tight. Okay, well, after further investigation, this regular LS flex plate, 6-bolt, does not work with whatever we have going on here. This is it's a Texas Speed engine. I have never in my life seen a 8-bolt setup for a flex plate. So all that driving I did was for nothing.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
And gonna have to get a flex plate. Figure out if they sell an aftermarket 8-lug plate, which I'm sure they do. I've never heard of until now. Okay, that's a huge learning curve for me. So 8-bolt pattern is a LSA type of engine. That's how Texas Speed sells them. LSA, crate motor, those are all 8 bolts. I have never heard of that before until right now, which means that I wasted all that time this morning to go get this deal. And instead of yesterday me spending $330 on the flex plate to avoid to go get that, now I have to spend $400 on a flex plate to you know, get this to work, which luckily Winter Circle has one in stock. So I'm gonna run back up there, go get it, then we can put this transmission in. So a little tech tip for you. All right, we're back with the new flex plate. Luckily, Winter Circle had one. It's an 8-bolt TCI, and in the description of this, it said, must have special converter, torque converter, if using 4L80. Well, we are using a 4L80, and I don't know how special this torque converter is supposed to be, but this is a Circle D torque converter. Before I put the flex plate on, I made sure that the holes lined up in the correct spots, and they do. So I guess now I'm gonna bolt the flex plate in and then just put the transmission up and see if the spacing is gonna be correct. I pray to God that it is. We don't need any more hiccups. I already wasted almost all day doing this. So race cars are never as easy as they're supposed to be. So lesson learned. Now I know, now you know. Okay, getting ready to torque these bolts down. Another little tip I wanted to at least talk about. It's not really a tip, but generally I would use an ARP bolt for these. These are actually the bolts that came with this flex plate. So considering that there's 8 of them, I'm assuming that there's never going to be an issue with that. They had factory Loctite on them, so we're gonna use that. This is my flex plate stop. That way I can torque these down without the flex plate or the motor turning over. So 74 foot-pounds is what it calls for. That's what it's gonna be. So. It did come with the torque converter adapter, but considering this is an aftermarket converter, I'm not sure if we're gonna need it. Actually, this doesn't even, oh yeah, it does fit. You know what, we're just gonna put it in there. We're gonna try it. Make sure this thing's all cleaned off. Yeah, hopefully it's all the right spacing. Oh yeah. Pull out the cross member first. Dowel pins. We got no engine dowel pins. Man. This may be the longest transmission install you will ever see. All right, sometimes you gotta put the camera down so you can get your ass kicked. I got my ass kicked, but transmission's in. Man, you can see here that the torque converter it's not loose at all inside the crank. It fits nice and snug. All the holes seem to line up. I just gotta get some bolts for this deal. It's actually the perfect gap, so I don't even need any washers. So that worked out. It just took forever. So I put these lines on the trans before I put it in there so I can get to the lines a little easier. It's the wideband sensor, and it's the electric kickdown cable, I believe, or for the trans brake, I don't remember, one of the two, regardless. I got the cross member. It's just in there loosely. I gotta put the bolts in, tighten it up. But man, I got my butt kicked, but it's in. I'm happy. Lou's gonna be happy. So that's all that matters. Drive shaft's in, trans is in, cross member's in, torque converter bolts are in, they even got the starter in. And I know some of this wiring looks a little goofy, but I have to wait until I get the headers in to know where I'm gonna put them. And I'll probably run a P-clamp on the back of the head, tidy them up, keep them safe. But man, she is looking good. All right, now I can go to the top of the motor. Okay, onto the top of the motor. We're gonna put these rockers on, try to get these valve covers on tonight. It's getting late. Stock style rocker. It's just a new casting brand, a Summit brand with trunnion upgrade. Nothing special, doesn't have to be. So people have gone pretty far on these. So nothing I'd be worried about. We're gonna throw these in. I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite on the threads. Not a lot, just a little. Okay, we got more surprises. I'm putting all these rockers in. These are the push rods that came with this engine. I did not put these heads on. I don't even know what lifters are in here. If I had to guess, they're probably Johnson's. But anyway, regardless, I'm putting these rockers in and trying to tighten them down. And then the bolt runs all the way in and it stops. And see, this one right here is tight. This one's loose. Loose, tight. Loose, tight, tight, loose. And at first I thought maybe the exhaust or the intake push rods should be different lengths. But then when I go over to this side, I think this is the only one that's loose. All these are tight. So hopefully that these push rods, or not, sorry, the push rods, the lifters have been sitting in here for so long, they are just collapsed and need pumped back up. I wouldn't think, I mean, this motor has been sitting around for like 3 years, so it has been sitting around for a long time. I wouldn't think that they would collapse that much, but I think that's the only thing that it could be. So these are LS3 style heads, so some of the rockers are offset. I understand that, I know that, but something else is going on here. So hopefully we build some oil pressure and these things pump back up. I am going to turn the motor over by hand, obviously, before I try to crank on it. I would like to make sure everything spins freely, make sure the valves don't hit the pistons or something like that. So anyway, that's what I ran into. After further investigation, the rockers on this side, most of them were tight. Well, I spun the motor over and then they became loose. So those rockers just happen to be on the valves, and all of the push rods are too short. That's all it was. So we got to get longer push rods. That was it. I'm a dummy. All right. Wednesday morning, early Wednesday morning. Lou's coming to get this car tomorrow. It's not looking great for our deadline to get this thing running, but we're gonna get as close as we possibly can. So first thing we're gonna work on this morning, get these injectors in the rails, get the rails on the blower, get the blower in the car. I can't necessarily put this blower on the car by myself. This thing weighs a ton, and I'm just not going to try and struggle by myself. So I'm gonna have to see if Cody can come help me put this thing on real quick today. But after that, we're gonna work on getting the fuel lines hooked up. Maybe go get push rods and keep throwing parts at it. So when installing the injectors, what I like to do, this is just how I do things. I just get a little bit of grease on my finger, get a little on the O-ring. I try not to get any on top of the injector or get any inside. Not that that would really kill anything, but kind of less than ideal. But anyway, this is just how I do it. It's always worked for me. So on the top O-ring and the bottom O-ring, and also I preferably like to put the injector into the rail and put the rail onto the intake. The fuel rail has the pressure on it, right? So you don't want to damage this O-ring. If the injector's sitting in the intake and you press the rail down, there's really no way to tell if you damage the O-ring. So I like to slide the top of the injector into the rail and then slide it down. That way, worst case scenario, if you booger up the bottom O-ring, it will just basically have a vacuum leak. So rather than having a fuel leak, which is a little more important in my eyes. So anyway, that's just how I do it. So we're gonna lube these up, throw them in. Okay, well, when it rains, it pours. So these brown O-rings are too small for the intake. So when I slid the injector rail down, all of the injectors just fell right in. They're not supposed to fall right in. They're supposed to have a little bit of resistance. I took the injector out and you can just wiggle it a little bit in the intake of the blower. So I went into the back room and I grabbed like a truck intake blue O-ring, and I tried that on our injector and it seems to work. That's another run to O'Reilly's because I don't have all 8. So like I said, when it rains it pours. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Okay, after the parts run, We got the correct O-rings on there now. I already got one side done. So that's how it should look. You can get the lighting right here. Let me get this light for you. So that's how it should look in there. They fit real good, real snug. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side done, get the rail on, and then I may actually use a cherry picker to put the blower on the car because I can't lift it by myself. We are ready to put the blower on. So fuel rails are on. We got the return lines here, which is just a 180 fitting, and then the return line is gonna shoot right across here. It's gonna kind of hide the injector clips. Wiring's tucked up, the injector harness is on. Looking pretty good. Had to go to Menards to get hardware, some stainless hardware. Apparently when you spend $9,000, they don't send you any bolts. So had to go buy bolts to bolt this thing down. No big deal. Kind of annoying, but at the end of the day, it's no big deal. So about ready to put this thing on, and hopefully it'll be on there for good. Once I get the blower on, then I can build the return line from the rail to the regulator. I just got to get it on to measure my length first. So let's do it. We got her on there. And of course, this fuel line right here is about, as you can see, 2-3 inches too short. So I have to make a new fuel line. And also, I don't have a throttle body gasket. We ordered one, it was too small. And I'm gonna make one. So this is just gasket material. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer the holes. I already got it outlined. And then I'll cut out the middle, and then we'll have a gasket. One more thing to knock off the list, but it is coming together. And I'll have to rewire or repin a map sensor plug because it's going to be different than the last one that was in this car. Build our fuel lines, which I bought some fittings for the regulator, but they're kind of the wrong shape. They're like, I had bought 45s, but I think we're just gonna need some 22s, and then I'll get that built as well. Just like that, got ourselves a gasket. Pretty easy. I'll put it on the car now. Okay, we got this throttle body on, we got the harness hooked up, and I decided to move on to a different project that I'm a little worried about time-wise, is the gas pedal. So far what I've come up with, and remember, like I said, this was a drive-by cable. Now it's going to be drive-by wire. So sometimes these things can be kind of tricky to mount up. Obviously the whole pattern and everything and the offset's going to be different. So what I've come up with so far is this plate, and I'm going to transfer these holes into this plate and then basically bolt this plate to the firewall. And then this pedal will be offset, because when I offset the pedal like that, it lines up pretty much in the same location as the factory one. So I'm going to transfer some holes through here, bolt this pedal to this plate, and it should work out pretty well. Who's coming tomorrow?
You sure about that?
To get the car, be tomorrow at night. So I still have all day tomorrow to really get this thing buttoned up. The new push rods will be here tomorrow. Then I can put the lid on. I can fix that fuel line, finish this gas pedal assembly deal. So we also did get some sensors. We got a map sensor in today. We got the air temperature sensor in today. So we can knock a few things off the list. Throttle body gasket, did that. Map sensor, got that on. Fuel rails, we did that. Gas pedal we're working on. Gas pedal harness, we won't cross that. Yeah, we'll cross that off. That's in there, it's plugged in.
Radiator, not quite yet. Rockers, we'll wait to cross that off. Alternator wire, crossover tube. Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. We've knocked out a lot of the list. So actually right now, we are closing in on 1,000 subscribers. Let's see if you can see that there. 998. So I'm assuming later tonight, I get them other 2, and then we hit our first goal. Came in pretty early this morning with a good attitude, and I just went straight to work. I didn't turn the camera on. I just started throwing parts at it, started knocking things off that list, and I'll kind of show you that stuff right now. So, that gas pedal bracket that I had an idea of worked flawlessly. This thing is, sorry, it's looking like a rainbow spaghetti bowl in here. Obviously, all this stuff will get cleaned up. I shouldn't have to tell you that again, but look at this pedal. Factory location, it's sturdy, it's perfect. There's enough room underneath the pedal for the carpet. When the carpet goes in, that couldn't have worked out any better. All right, so that's that. I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm gonna take that plate out and paint it, make it pretty. I did get the radiator in. I really had to get the radiator in so I can start coming up with some radiator hoses. That fan, now I believe is probably temporary. That radiator, when we bought it, had a really nice shroud and fan combination on it. And originally we took that off because the twin turbos were right up there. So the fan's on it for now. We may take that off and switch it with that nice shroud and fan later on. Let's see, what else? The next thing after that, I'm going through this wire harness, back to the drive-by cable, drive-by wire stuff. This is the drive-by cable, TPS, and IAC. We will no longer need that, and which kind of helped me out because this air intake temperature sensor ran all the way to the front of the motor. We don't need it there anymore. It's actually gonna go right about here in the blower lid. So, I'm gonna go through this harness. I don't wanna cut these, but I'm at least going to untape them and bring them probably all the way back into the cab. When I'm done with this motor, the ideal look that I'm going for is you cannot see any wires, no wires at all. So maybe the only thing you'll see is that throttle body harness, which it's colorful at the end. I'm gonna put some black heat shrink or tape around it so that's not goofy colors. But I'm gonna shoot back to last year when this car was twin turboed and it had all kinds of stuff on it. It was literally a work of art. So I'm gonna show you that clip right now. And in the meantime, I'm gonna start getting busy on this stuff. It's Friday morning, which means Lude did not pick up the car Thursday night like we had planned. We had a lot of setbacks here. We had a lot of stuff that was also kind of out of our control. With a lot of stuff on order, I couldn't get this car where we wanted it. So, with that being said, here's what we got going on today. The blower is on. It's on for good. We finally got the correct length push rods. I'm about ready to tighten those down and finally put the valve covers on. I know we've been talking about that since Monday. So, map sensor. Yesterday I had to go get a map sensor plug so I can put the new plug on this harness, and it has to be rerouted on the other side of the blower. And I've got that. So I've got that. I'll have to cut that, splice it into the new harness. And stuff like this. With the old motor, this is one of the old feed lines to the fuel rail. It was literally 1 inch too short. And I tried and tried to make it work. I even slid
from the back of the car, the whole fuel line, all of the fuel lines up forward as much as I could to try to get it to fit, and it just wasn't natural and wasn't gonna work. So that's another trip. I had to buy a 5-foot roll just to make this, you know, we'll say 2 inches longer. So we're also doing that today. And when it comes to Steamport kits, this is a motion kit that I originally was going to have mounted and somewhere on here. Now, this works and it's awesome, but when this car leaves, I don't want a Steamport kit mounted somewhere on top of this blower all up in your face. I don't want anything visible. So the way I do it, which there's a lot of different ways people do this, I drill and tap the water pump. And so the lines are gonna be super short, super hidden for the most part. It's just the way I do things. So, and then another option, which Motion sells this in their kit, is to weld it in the radiator. Well, as you can see with the radiator, not like I can do a whole lot of welding. I'd have to cut all these out and weld this thing in. It's just not necessary right now for what I'm gonna be doing. So, cool kit for Motion. It's just, I am actually gonna use most of the pieces from the kit. I'm just not gonna use the big block. So, that's what we got going on today. I would imagine by the end of the day, this thing's in really good shape. Yesterday, Justin and Jeff came over and we had to go through some of this harness. Now, when the car left the first time, the computer and harness were kind of just bundled up on the floor there. There's no interior in this car, there's no carpet, there's nothing. So we couldn't mount it anywhere, knowing that the interior guys were gonna be putting in vintage air and, you know, everything that they have to do. So we kind of just loosely had this sitting here. It looks extremely ugly, but of course, you know, that stuff will get cleaned up. So we had to go through it yesterday just to figure out our powers and grounds again, because a lot of that stuff got disconnected. And we did hook the battery up. Eventually we got it all working. Justin put a bass tune on the computer. So I'm not gonna say that it's gonna run today, but it would be really, really close. We are still missing headers. I'm not gonna start this car without headers. I could put, like, I have some truck manifolds I could put on there. I don't really think anybody wants to see this car with a truck manifold on it, even temporarily. So it kind of is what it is on that point. We really need some headers, and then maybe this thing could fire up. So yeah, we're gonna throw all these parts on and I'll keep you updated.
Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon, hella ass, the sun is still out.
Okay. It's looking like something now. We got the map sensor harness on there. Now I am going to undo this fuel rail bracket and tuck this wire back behind there. I know it'll fit really nice and hide it. Like I said, no wires. Finally. Valve covers are on, coils are on. Man, that's huge. Okay, add to the list. Valve cover gaskets, yep, done. Fuel line's not done, gas pedal, not quite. Battery is in. Radiator's in, but we're not quite done with that. Rockers, those are on. Map plug, on, look at that. List is just getting smaller. There's definitely more things to add to that list, but not quite yet, so. Chipping away, we're doing it, it's happening.